Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to take up all the important points and related concepts of business management and human resource management, which is chapter number 6 for UGC NET and KSET syllabus. So let's move on to the topic. Business management. What is this business management? In the word itself, it is given as managing business. It is from olden days. We can realize that management has been happening right through the history of man. It's all about achieving goals smoothly. But in the modern world, because of increasing competition, globalization, the word smoothly turned as effectiveness. So, to run our business smoothly in the modern days, we need to study so many factors. Like all those factors which will affect your business, whether it may be internal factors or external factors. Internal factors are those factors which will affect, but you can control those factors, where those factors are up to certain extent in your hands. But external factors you need to take care properly. You need to study properly to take right decision. So this subject, business management, is going to help you to take right decision and to make proper plan to reach your target or reach your goal. So we'll move on to the subject. First point is organization is open system which are affected by the environment outside its boundaries. One time we got a question in the examinations asking that organization is dash system. So it is an open system. Why it is open system? What do you mean by open system? Open system means any organization, any business, whether it is small business, medium or a large, all business units or organizations are affected by external and internal forces. External forces, internal forces means internal forces are within your organization. External factors are those which are outside your business or outside your organization. External factors again divided into two types. Those are micro factors and macro factors. Micro factors are those which will affect your business immediately. Like example, your suppliers, customers, competitors, etc. Macro factors are those factors which will affect your business, but you need to take care properly. You need to study more than these macro factors. For example, economic and political changes, technological changes, all these factors, time to time, day to day, you need to check and study properly to take right decision or to make your plan. So because of that reason, organizations are called as open system. Organization is open system, remember that. To take our decisions, to make our plans, to control our business, to understand our situations, many philosophers, many scientists have given principles, techniques and tools for our business organizations. So we'll move on to each some of the philosophers. First one, I'm going to F.W. Taylor. According to him, management is an act of knowing what to do, when to do, and see that it is done in the cheapest way. So F.W. Taylor said that we need to take care, we need to do all the things in a cheapest way. Cheapest way means it is not related to the quality. It is related, cheapest way means our resources are limited. So how to use your limited resources in a productive way. He explained how to use your limited resources in a productive way in his methods. Those methods are called as scientific methods. So he is also called as father of scientific management. So who is father of scientific management here? F.W. Taylor. See, F.W. Taylor is also called as father of scientific management. He has given 5 principles or scientific methods to understand your business situation. In that, most important point is science, not rule of thumb. We should remember this point. It is very important according to the examination point of view. Science, not rule of thumb means you cannot make decisions with your personal judgment or your traditional methods. You need to take decision. You need to adopt those techniques which are suitable for that situation. You need to change yourself, you need to change your methods and technologies according to the technology. You should not follow the same olden rules or same opinions which you have in the previous situations. So you need to change your methods, you need to change your technology or techniques according to the situation. So FW Taylor given 5 principles. In that one I explained here, that is science, not rule of thumb. Next philosopher is Henry Fowell. He has given 14 principles of management. He is also called as father of modern management. Don't get confused with father of scientific management and father of modern management. Father of modern management is Henry Fowell and father of scientific management is F.W. Taylor. So he has given 14 principles to understand management and deal with the management procedures. Procedures is nothing but here steps. So in these 14 principles, in the next slide, I am going to explain few of important principles. So next move on to the our social scientist Max Weber. So our social scientist Max Weber proposed the idea of bureaucracy. So it is, you can see this type of questions in the match the following section. Social scientist Max Weber. So we learned 3 names here: F.W. Taylor, Henry Fowell, and Max Weber. F.W. Taylor is called as scientific father of scientific management, and Henry called as father of modern management, and this Max Weber is social scientist. Next, move on to the next one, because the next philosopher is who extended the idea of Max Weber, that is bureaucracy. It was Alton Mayo and F.G.R. Berger who made an impact of behavioral science theory through the Hathor experiment in the Western Electronic Company. What is this experiment? Hawthorne experiment means, in this they understood and they proved that if there is a good relationship between worker and supervisor, if there are a good working conditions, the productivity will be more, or productivity will be in the good position. So here he explained that there is a relationship between happy worker and productivity. Okay, move on to the next one. He is Peter Drucker, who wrote several management issues known as management by objective. This is very, very important. Management by objective, introduced by Peter Drucker in 1954, and his book is Principles of Management. The same management by objective, also known as management by result, both are same. Management by result or management by objective, both are same, given by Peter Drucker. What is this management objectives means? It is all about focusing on result, not each and every action. Here everything is focused on the result, completely result oriented one. Next, move on to William Ochi. After years of research founded that it was the way people were managed and connected, not the technology, that creates the productivity. With his experiments, he proved that there is here human resources most important factor than other things. If you need to manage human resource more than other things to get good productivity or create the productivity. Theory is also called as Z theory. In Z theory, William Ochi, the same Z theory is also called as Japanese management style. Here it is focused on if employee is satisfied, here he creates good production. So he explained here is that if employee is satisfied, you will get good productivity. In his theory, Z theory. So let's move on to the point. Next point is here in this we'll study in that Henry Fowell 14 principles. We'll study few of important points. First one is unity of command. As I told you, Henry is given 14 principles. He is father of modern management. In that 14 principles, I mentioned few principles here. First one is unity of command. Unity of command means one person, whether one employee or one worker, he should receive orders from one supervisor only. That is unity of command. Means command is only from one supervisor. One worker or employee, he should get directions from the one supervisor only, to avoid all the confusions and the misunderstandings in between worker and supervisors. Next one is scalar chain. Scalar chain is the flow of information and exercise of authority has flow it changed from the top to bottom. This does not mean that the strict hierarchy, but it means to existence of clear flow. The clear flow means all the information communication, it should be from top to bottom. Always you cannot follow, but according to the situation, balanced flow you need to maintain. Next one is esprit de groupe. It means that creating harmony spirit in between workers, so that you will get the motivation, and all together we'll try to reach our common goal, not like personal goal. Here we are not trying to get our personal goals. Here all should unitily try to get or try to reach the common goal. Next one is most important one, centralization and decentralization. Centralization means concentration of authority at top level only. So the top level managers will have right to take decisions. They will, whatever the information, everything comes from the top level only. And this decentralization is completely opposite. In decentralization, delegating the authority to the lower level also. Delegating the authority means giving your authority or giving your responsibility power to the lower level, not top level, middle level and lower level workers also, are up to certain extent, not completely certain terms. Next, move on to next point. So the most important one, which from which will start our main topic. So in the management, managerial functions are 5. First one is, as I told you, management we have steps. Procedure means steps wise we'll go. So those steps are functions are 5: planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. So one by one, what is planning, what are the important topics or points in planning, organizing, staffing, one by one up to control, we'll discuss later on in this video. So remember these 5 points. Functions of management is planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. All 5 together is called as managerial functions. Of course, Luther has given keywords POSDCORB. Means P means planning, O means organizing, S means staffing, D means directing, O means controlling. He added 2 more letters, those are R and B. R means reporting, B means budgeting. So sometimes you will get to see this type of question. POCDCORB. Keywords given by whom? In the match the following section, sometimes in the normal question also you will get to see this question. So remember his name. Luther. Luther given 2 more, he added 2 more words, reporting and budgeting. Next, move on. First one is, in this 5 functions, the first function is planning. So we'll start what is planning. For whatever we are doing, whether it is daily routine work or special work or a particular purpose work, whatever we will plan first in our daily life also. So here also in the organization they need planning. The planning is a first step and a basic step in the business. It's like a blueprint of your goal achievement that specifies necessary resources allocation, schedule, task, and other actions to achieve your target. How to start our work, from where to start, and what are the steps to go, keep on going to reach our target. Everything will be mentioned in the planning. We need to go according to a plan. So in this planning and decision making, we have some models. So according to the models, first we'll analyze these models, then only we'll start doing our planning for the future. So in these models are very important. We have 3 models here. These 3 models are important. First model is TOWS matrix model. TOWS matrix model is, if you'll reverse it will be SWOT. Means strength, weakness, opportunity and threat. But we need to study our threats first. That's why it is TOWS matrix model now. So analyzing your threats first, then study your opportunities, find out your weakness and find out your strength, so that you will enter into the market or you will enter into the production unit and you will plan accordingly. So before starting your planning, you need to analyze these 4 factors so that you will plan properly. So in this matrix model, he explained to study your strength, weakness, opportunities and threats. But in that, threats and opportunities are most important points than weakness and strength. Remember that threats and opportunities are important in this topic. Next, if we'll go to the next one, portfolio matrix or BCG matrix. BCG matrix is nothing but Boston Consulting Group, because they developed it. Because of that, they have given BCG matrix also for this. In this matrix, first they said that we need to understand our situation. They divided the situations in 4 categories. Those are stars, question mark, cash cows, and dogs. First, we need to study all the 4 situations. We are belong to which situation. According to that, we need to plan. So, first one is star. Star is a situation or a star in analysis where your business growth is strong and market share also high. Those are called as star. Star means the best position. Means your business growth is strong as well as your market share is high. Next one is question mark. In this question mark, your business is strong but your market share is weak. Next one is cash cows. Here, low business growth but strong market share. Your market share is strong but your business is not that much strong. Last one is dogs. Dogs means your business growth also very weak and your market share is also very low. Means all 2 are in the low category. So this one is the least position and star is the best position. So after analyzing these 4 situations, you need to take how to do planning and you need to take care of this situation. This question sometimes you will see for the match the following section also. Next model, if we'll go first model, it is Potter's 5 forces model. Before planning anything, if you want to introduce new product, if you want to continue, if you want to come to a competitive world, you need to understand these 5 factors, because these 5 factors are very important to start up your plan. Those 5 factors are power of suppliers, threat of substitute products, rivalry between competing sellers, power of buyer, and new entries. So all these 5 factors will affect your planning. So before doing any plan, you need to study all these 5 forces to take proper planning. In that planning only, we have 2 more important strategies. One is blue ocean strategy and second one is red ocean strategy. We'll understand what are these strategies. This blue ocean strategy suggests that it is better that one uses his strength and enter untouched opportunities rather than trying to make up strength and enter in a competitive world. Try to make up your weaknesses and enter into the competition world. So in this strategy, he said that don't enter in the competitive world. Instead of that, you go to untouched area and you develop yourself. You search for your opportunities. But completely opposite one is red ocean. In that red ocean, it is suggested that to make strategy to beat the competitive environment. So in this red ocean and blue ocean, both are completely opposite. In the red ocean, it is said that you need to face the competition. You need to make such a plans that you can beat the competitive environment. These 2 points also very important in the planning topic. Next one is after planning, the second function of your business management is organizing. Organizing is nothing but after planning, we need to gather all the things whatever we need to start action in the future. So it is a systematic arrangement of people to accomplish some specific purpose. Organize composed of 3 elements: people, goals, and systems. So in these organizations, we have 2 organizations: formal organization, informal organization. This is also important. Formal organization means whatever the relationship, roles, norms, responsibilities, rights, everything clearly defined before starting. But informal organizations will happen spontaneously, like social relationship. Employees will sit together and they will talk about the organizations, they will discuss about the matters, everything comes under the informal organization. But formal organizations completely opposite. All the rules and regulations, whatever the responsibilities already decided by the top level managers, what to do, whom to do, this work is done by whom, everything will be mentioned clearly in the formal organizations. But cannot see anywhere only formal or informal. It should be balanced according to the situation. So the next point is span of control. Span of control is nothing but how many employees or how many people are working under one supervisor or one head or manager. So it's all about talking about how many people are working under, or how many team members are working under one manager, because one manager cannot control thousands or hundreds. Work is divided into group, working people are divided into groups, so each group is controlled by one head. So in the span of control we are studying the same thing. The larger an organization, the more management layers it has. As a result, a hierarchy is born. Multiple people in department deals with a single supervisor. Okay, so the team's span of control indicates that number of employees or managers who works under one head, right? So in the span of control, you may not only in the larger organization, you will see the span of control in medium size also. If small size number is very less, so because of that you will see one or two supervisors. But if large organization, you need more supervisors, or sometimes more employees and one supervisor. So according to that number, again it is divided into narrow or wide span, horizontal and vertical dimension. Narrow means if working people are less under one head, it is narrow. If employees or a team members are number is more, then it is called as wide span or span one. So you can remember in this way. Span of control indicates that number of employees working under one head or manager. When a few people reporting to one head, it is narrow. When more people are reporting to the supervisor, it is wide span, like 20 or 30 or more than 20. It's depend upon your situations. It depends upon your experience, subordinate experience, and how he can handle the things. According to that, we have to decide whether it is narrow or wide. Next, move on to the next slide. Next function is staffing. In the word itself, staffing. Staffing means recruiting or selecting people who needs, who wants or who required for work, or to fill the position. So once the organization have created a structure by grouping the activities and managers to coordinate need people for the positions. So we need to fill the positions, who is doing which work, who is efficient in this work, so whom we have to select. So all these process, human resource trainings and everything, recruitment, selection, training, everything will be done in this function, staffing. So staffing is a work or a function of management. This is the third step. So in that staffing, again it is the staffing is in that important point is line and staff concept. Line and staff are form of authority. What is authority? First we'll understand what is authority. Authority is nothing but right to perform or a command. Authority is nothing but here power. Power to ask your employees to do this work, right to order something, right to command something. So in this authority, again it is divided into three types. Means authority, whom to whom we are giving authority, whether to employee or top level, who will have this authority, who will have power to command, who will have power to give orders. So according to that basis, they are divided into three types: line authority, staff authority, functional authority. Line authority means the most fundamental authority. Most of the places will see this authority only. The most fundamental authority with an organization. It shows top to bottom relationship. Only superior have right to make decision. Means top level managers will have to take decisions. Lower level they cannot interfere, or they cannot advise, or they cannot take any decisions. So whatever the decision, it should come from the top level only. Top manager will have power to take decision. If you'll go to the next one, staff authority. Staff authority means in the word itself it is given, staff also will have power or advice to assist to help the top level or managers. Means here we are completely not giving power to the staff, but they can advise or they can assist those who possess the line authority as well as other staff personnel. They can give advices. They are not big bosses, but they can give ideas or advices to the top. So interference will happen. Next point is delegation. In staffing, we understood that staffing is nothing but selecting right people for required work. In that staff only, we discussed about 2 points. One is line authority and staff authority. Authority is nothing but power. Staff authority is nothing but giving power to the employees or team members also to advise or to participate in decision making and other important process. So whenever this staff authority comes into the picture, we have to go for the extension, that is delegation of authority. Delegation of authority is nothing but giving the manager or the boss giving power to his subordinates, the responsibility to his subordinates, and at the end, after finishing that responsibility, the team member or the subordinate is responsible to show the end result to the superior. For example, if you will take in our regular classroom, the teacher will give some responsibility to the class leader. After finishing it, the class leader comes to teacher and he will show whatever the work given to him, is it finished or not, what is the position of that work, everything he will show it to the teacher. In the same way, in the big companies, organizations also, the superiors, sometimes managers will give or share their responsibility to their subordinates or team members. So those who received that responsibility, they have to finish the work according to the instructions given by the manager or a team leader, and at the end finally, that person has to show the end result to the superior. This delegation of authority, delegating, giving power to the staff or giving power to the junior here. So we can say that delegation of authority means giving power to the subordinates to act independently, but remember, we should remember that within the limits prescribed by the superior, and at the end he is accountable to show the result to the subordinate or a manager. That is called as delegation of authority. In this delegation of authority, already we discussed what is accountability. Accountability means nothing but you are answerable for your work details. So accountability is here, every employee is answerable to his superior for that accomplishment of task assigned to him. Whatever the work given to him, at the end of the day, he has to show the end result to the manager or the boss. That is called as accountability. So the layer of delegation of authority will be in this form. First level is called as top level. This is the highest level in the organization. Next is middle level, lower level, and last level is operational level. This is delegation and authority and accountability concept. Move on to the next one. Next one is controlling. This is very important according to the examination point of view. Controlling is here nothing but commanding or controlling somebody. Controlling here in the organization sense, controlling means verifying your work, measuring your work, taking corrective actions if any mistakes. That is called as controlling. Controlling, we should not think that controlling somebody or giving or behaving dominatively. Nothing like that in this meaning. Controlling is nothing but regularly we are correcting ourselves wherever we are going wrong, we are correcting our mistakes, and we are continuously trying to improve ourselves to reach the organizational goals. So in simple words, we can say that control is like a rubber of business, because it ensures that a process is going in a right direction. Right directions means already we planned something in the first step planning. So are we going according to that plan or not? That one we have to check regularly in this controlling. So are we going in the right direction by making continuous corrections? Controlling can be defined as measuring, correcting of our performance to achieve the end result or organizational goals. So in simple sentence, we can say that according to our plan, what is we made in the first step, are we going according to that plan? If somewhere something in some department or some sections, if anything is going wrong, how to correct it, how to measure it. In that way, we'll continuously checking ourselves, we are continuously going to correct ourselves so that everybody will together will reach organizational goals. So in this controlling, we have some process or steps procedure to be followed. In that procedure, step by step, we will reach, and at the end we will reach to our goal. So that process or steps of controlling is, first one is establishing standards, second one is measuring of performance, third one is comparison of actual and standard performance, and last one is taking remedial actions. So what is this setting performance standards? First step in the process of controlling. These standards are the basic for measuring the actual performance. Basing this only, we'll compare with our performance, actual performance. We can say one example. It is act as a lighthouse that warns and guide the ship at a sea. These are like benchmarks with which we will compare our performance. It can be expressed qualitatively, quantitatively. Quantitatively means we can measure, or we can calculate in the terms of number, or we can give numerical terms. Qualitative means we cannot give assign any number form, we have to understood this one. For example, if you will take for quantitative checking, cost incurred, cost to be incurred, time to be spent for the performing a task. For example, one machinery is there. In that one machinery, one labor can produce 1000 units in 24 hours. So 1000 units, here you are making a standard. So one should produce 1000 units because that machinery is capable to produce 1000 units in a day. So we are making here one standard, that 1000 units. So the 1000 is nothing but the standard which we are making. That is quantitative terms. Quantitative terms we can assign number form. Next, qualitative form, which we cannot, but we have to analyze and understood. For example, improving customer satisfaction or improving labor relationship, goodwill, all these terms we cannot measure like 1 2 3 4 5 6 number form, but we can analyze and we can estimate with analysis. So after establishment of standards, the next one is measuring of performance. Measuring of performance means, in the previous point I gave one example. This machinery is capable to produce 1000 units in a day. So now we are measuring our original performance. Are we able to produce 1000 or not? We are comparing with the standard. That standard number was 1000. So we are comparing 1000 with our actual performance. If you are producing only 500 units, the remaining whatever the time or whatever the capacity of machinery is wasted. So we will check continuously. Here we are measuring how, here those 1000 is the standard performance, but I am producing 500. So here in the second step, I am measuring my performance. In third step, comparison of actual and standard performance. So in the third step, we are comparing. Actually, in the standard, we can produce 1000 units, but we are producing only 500 units. What is wrong? Where is going wrong? So 500 units is difference for with the actual and standard one. So what is the problem? Where is the problem? In the fourth step, we will take remedial actions. So in the fourth step, we found the mistake. So we will try to correct the mistake to reach our goal or reach our standard. So these are the four process or steps of controlling. First, we'll establish standards to base up for the performance. Second one, measuring of a performance. Third one is comparison of actual and standard performance, and taking remedial action is the last and most important point. Without taking any remedial actions, we are not going to reach our organizational goal. So all four are very important. And in controlling, we have some techniques to understand how we are going, where is if any mistakes, where we are going wrong, and how to correct it. We will have some techniques. In that one, the first one and very important one is balance scorecard. What is this balance scorecard? It is also one technique, but it will control or it will show overall performance from overall units or overall activities performance clearly. That's why it is called as balance scorecard. Balance means each and every activity, each and every department will have a same value, balanced. Not we are giving more important weightage to one section and giving less weightage to another section. Here we are checking each and every element and overall performance we are checking here, which is called as balance scorecard. we can define it as it is a technique of overall performance control created by whom? Kaplan and North to measure and control strategy and its implementation. It measures financial, customer, internal process and learning and growth of all organization. So it is a balanced controlling technique. The next controlling techniques or other controlling techniques are: one, we can divide into budget as a control, non-budgetary controls. As in the line itself, it is given as budget. Budget means we can estimate and we can imagine in the form of money, or we can measure in the form of number. So budget as a control means it is a plan in numerical terms. Number form we can control, like cost of material, labor cost, production cost. Each and every cost we can measure in the form of money. How much sales volume increase, labor hour we can denote in the form of number. So whatever we can denote in the numerical terms, all those comes under the term budget as a control. So it is a plan in numerical terms. They are a statements of anticipated result. Means anticipated means future expecting result or required result. They may be in terms of financial figures, labor hours, materials or sales volumes. Next one, in this budget only, we have a different type: fixed budget, flexible budget, and most important one is zero based budgeting. Fixed budget, once we'll decide, once we'll prepare, you cannot change. Flexible budget, according to the situation time, you will change. What about the zero based budget, which is very important? Zero based budgeting is nothing but every year the activities and their costs are worked from the base. Means every year freshly we will erase whatever we did previously. We erase everything. We'll start from the beginning and we'll do the budget again. Every year we'll make it freshly. Why this is? Because for the continuous improvement and continuous correction. So it is very important. Zero based budget is nothing but every year the activities and their costs are worked from the base, from the beginning. In the second one is non-budgetary control. Non-budgetary control means we cannot measure in numerical terms. For example, inspection visit. The manager will go around and he will check the work. He will check with the benchmark. All these we cannot measure in the form of money or a numerical terms. But these also very important. So these are called as non-budgetary control. And other quality techniques are, if whatever the quality techniques, this is very important point. Quality technique. What is this quality technique? First we'll try to understand this. Quality management is nothing but it is act of overseeing all the activities and task needed to maintain desired level of excellence. So whatever our task, whatever our goal, that goal, basing on that goal, we will check each and every point, so that everywhere, in every position, every step, we will take corrective actions to reach our goal or reach our target with a high excellence. That is quality control. In that we have some techniques. We'll go for that. It is believed that quality must be managed. First realization takes you to the next step. That is, the problems are created by the process and not by the people. So this control makes you to look at the process rather than the employees. Any process is going wrong, where we can correct the process. In this way, we'll start checking each and every process to get into the final result or to reach our final goal. In the techniques, we have very important point, Kaizen technique. What is it? It is philosophy based on the teamwork, personal discipline, improved morale, and suggests for the improvement, mainly elimination of waste and inefficiency. It is a Japanese techniques. According to this, continuous eliminating waste and continuous improvement in our work. So this philosophy is giving us or guiding us for the improvement, continuous improvement in our work. Not only that, it will mainly concentrate on eliminating wastage and inefficiency. So the next point is just in time. It is completely concentrating on the stock or inventory. Any stock, we need raw material to start the work. At the end point, again we'll get the finished product or finished material. So in between that, from raw material to finished product, any material or a stock, are we wasting? Are we utilizing it properly? So continuously it will keep on checking about stock, how we are utilizing our stock. Are we bringing more raw material and wasting there? Are finished goods or finished material, are we keeping it safe or properly? Are we doing, or are we ordering more than that we want? Everything, each and every point we need to control to cut off our cost of production. If cost of production is good, then definitely we will reach our target. So in this just in time, any inventory, whether the part or a finished goods, is a cost, so it must be controlled. In the stage of raw material and in the stage of finished goods also, you need to control raw material in each and every stage. So this particular technique concentrating on this inventory. So just to avoid overproduction, unnecessary waste of waiting time, and transport and process waste and inventory waste. So unnecessary, if you eliminate unnecessary waste, definitely if you will reach to your goal. So it will keep on trying of eliminating wastage in any stage. Next one is Six Sigma. Six Sigma, it is a standard for standard deviation from the mean. It is statistical technique. It helps to improve the capability and reduce the defects in any process. It is a statistical technique. It is also this technique also help us to improve our capabilities and reduce our defects in each and every process. Next one, these two are Gantt charts and PERT techniques. These two are in the form of graphs, means these two are graphical representation of quality control techniques, because picture shows easily than the all the statistical work. So easily anybody can understand if you'll show in the form of graph. So in this first one, Gantt chart, it is a bar chart developed by Henry, which illustrated a project schedule, where to start. It is completely concentrating on time, when to start and where to start, and what is the next process, what are the multi stages of the task, what is the end stage of the task. Each and every element will be represented in the form of graph. In the same way, PERT technique also, it is also programming evaluation and review technique. It is also graphical representation of a project schedule. It shows a sequence of a task. What is first task, what is second task, which is very important task. Without that, the work will not go further. That is critical path, or which is a critical path, where to take more concentration. What is the next sequence? In that stepwise, workwise, time allotted schedule, everything will be checked in PERT technique, which shows in a graphical form. So program evaluation review technique is a graphical representation which shows the schedule. It shows a sequence of tasks, which task can be performed simultaneously. It also shows the critical path of task that must be completed on time, so that the project meets completion deadline. All these two are graphical form of this quality control techniques. So these 2 points also very important. Next one is organizational behavior. Up to last slide, we discussed about managerial functions. Managerial functions are 5. From planning to controlling, we discussed we covered all important points and related concepts. So in this organizational behavior, we are concentrating on human resource. So it's all about human resource, because management has 3 major dimensions: technical, conceptual, and very important factor is human factor. Hawthorne experiment already proved that there is a relationship. If there is a good relationship between superior and worker, it will leads to good productivity and efficiency also. It means if worker is happy, employee is satisfied, then ultimately it will leads to good productivity also. In that experiment already we learned that. So in this organizational behavior, we are concentrating on human resource, which is very important, which you cannot neglect or ignore. If worker is happy, you will get the production also effectively and efficiently. So in that organizational behavior, first point is motivation. Without motivation, motivation means which inspire you to do the work, that is motivation. If one student is studying, doing hard work, what is the purpose, what is the motivation? because to score good marks in the exam. If he score good marks in the exam, he will get in a top colleges, he will get the seat or he will get good job in the market. So motivation is nothing but the point or a triggering point which give you power or inspire you to do the work. So if without motivation, the worker will not reach his target or he will not show that much interest to increase the production and efficiency. So always the superior or the top manager will try to motivate the workers to achieve or reach goals smoothly. So in this, motivation is a process that account for an individual's intensity, direction and persistence of effort attaining a goal. It helps to achieve the goal and job satisfaction. So in this motivation, we have different theories. I divided these theories in two sections. Some of the early theories of motivation and contemporary theories of motivation. In the early theories, I mentioned here three theories. One is Maslow hierarchy theory and theory of X and Y and Herberg's two factors theory. In contemporary theories also, we are going to discuss two theories. So first we'll go for the Maslow's hierarchy theory. Very important theory. You will see this type of question in the match the following section also. What is this Maslow's hierarchy of need theory? According to Maslow, human beings have wants and desires which influence their behavior. Only dissatisfied needs can influence the behavior. The needs follow an order for the important called as hierarchy. So hierarchy means nothing but according to our priority, our needs are divided into 5 sections. Which one is important? Which need is first? What is a priority? According to the priority basis, our wants are divided into 5 sections. So one by one, we'll try to satisfy all 5 to motivate ourselves according to Maslow. So those 5 steps or those 5 according to the priorities, those needs are divided into 5. The first one is here physiological needs, means hunger, thirst, shelter. These are the basic needs anybody wants. So first we'll try to satisfy these needs first. If we are not getting any salary, nobody will work because we are working to earn our food. So first stage or a first priority is for the hunger, thirst, shelter, the basic needs. Second, for safety. Safety includes security and protection from physical and emotional harms. Therefore, he looks for working place and does not want to be threatened or abused in the workplace. After satisfying the first need, he will try for the second one. What is the second one? He will try to enjoy or he will try to be happy in the workplace. If workplace is like in the workplace, if we are not happy, working conditions are if not good, he will not get any satisfaction and the work also in the same manner you can see the end result. So second, he will try to satisfy his need, what that is for the safety. Third, social. After satisfying safety, he will go for the third need. What is the third need according to Maslow? It is social need. It includes affection, belongingness, acceptance and friendship in the workplace. If he gets this, he will be happy to work hard. After the social needs, next fourth stage is esteem. In this esteem, it will include internal esteem factors such as he will try to get self-respect, achievements, external esteems like status, recognition and attention in the workplace. Last final stage, after satisfying all four, he will try to reach this fifth one. Fifth need is self-acquisition, the drive to become what one is capable of becoming, including growth, achievement, and one potential and self-fulfillment. I want to reach to that target. That last point is self-acquisition. So in Maslow's hierarchy need theory, you may get match the following section. These 5 and related points, or sometimes Maslow's hierarchy theory steps also you will get in the question. So take care of this. This is most important one in this motivation section. Next one is theory of X and Y. Here in this theory of X and Y, we can say that here they are analyzing manager's attitude or behavior, leader or manager. So some according to this theory, some managers or some leaders, they will assume that workers they are inherently lazy. They are already lazy. They will see to avoid the work all the time. So they need close supervision. Vision. Without our guidance, without direction, they will not do any work. That type of leadership style. Second one, they will assume that the workers or employees are self-motivated, ambitious, and they will accept great responsibility and exercise self-control, self-directions. In this way, this second manager or second way of leadership will think. So X is the one who will think that worker is inherently lazy and avoid the work, and Y theory says that he is self motivated and accept greater responsibility. So this is called X and Y theory. This theory X and Y, X theory X is far less efficient than theory Y. So theory, after theory X and Y, it is also important point. This theory given by McGeorge, very important point. Motivational theory, Maslow's theory given, hierarchy need given by Maslow, X and Y theory given by McGeorge. Next one, Herbach theory. According to him, he divided our needs into factors into two factors. That's why it is also called as two factors theory. One factor is hygiene factor, second factor is motivated or motivator factor. So first one is hygiene factor. Hygiene factors are those factors which we need. Without that we will not be happy. But after getting these also, it will not be like motivated factors. Simply we need those. Without that we will not be happy. But those are not ultimate motivators for us. Second factors are those which will motivate us. Those are motivated. So here those two factor, one factor whose absence leads to lack of motivation but does not necessarily motivate, which is called as hygiene factors, and those which are actually motivated is called as motivators. So those two factors are, one is hygiene factors, second one is motivators. Hygiene factors are those factors which are must and should, but which directly or which compulsorily necessarily will not give motivation to the worker. Second one, those factors which will directly affect our term motivation. Second one, next one is ERG theory. Alderfer classified need into three categories. In this theory also, what he did, after the Maslow's hierarchy theory, whatever the 5 steps, he make it short into 3 pieces. So in this he divided those categories into not to 3 categories. Next one, expectancy theory. It is given by Vikram Rooms in 1964. According to that, an individual believes that he will reward it in accord with his or her own level of performance. The relationship with that a person links performance to reward personal goals. And this formula is very important. Here, ability into motivation into opportunity according to this theory. You need to remember the philosopher names also in this, and some of the other important points in this topic are, it is about leader. We know that leader, we'll see leader in our daily lives also. Leaders are those who will inspire us, who will direct us, who will guide us. So in this leadership also we have different styles, because the behavior, attitude, style of leaders are different. According to that differences, the attitudes, types of leaders are divided mainly into 4 categories. So first one is authoritarian leader, second one is democratic leader, third one is laissez-faire leader, and last one is orientation leader. So we will briefly will discuss about these leadership styles one by one. First one is, remember one more point which is important. All these leadership styles are given by Nielsen and Quick. So if you have your notebook, please note down this. All these 4 definitions or leadership styles are described by the Nielsen and Quick. So according to them, first one is authoritarian leader. In that word itself, authority means showing dominative position or dominative character. This is dominative character. So a style of leader in which leader uses strong directive and controlling actions to enforce the rules, regulations, activities and relationships in the work environment. So he want end result. So whatever he will utilize his power completely. He will dominate workers. He will dominate his team leaders. Ultimately, his target is to reach the goal. He will not think whether the people are happy, workers are happy or not. He will give directions, he will give orders, he will give rules, regulations to the workers or team members, because to reach the target. It's more or less, it is like one way communication means all the time he is the one who will give instructions. He will not listen to others. So he is poor listener and he wants only ultimate result. So whenever it is required, he will give awards also, but he will not hesitate to give punishments also. So he will give awards as well as punishments also. Second type is democratic leader. In this style, here this style of leadership is very good. He will listen to other people also. He will take advices from his team members and workers also. And it is like open communication, two-way communication. He will listen to them, at the same time he will give the instructions also. He will give awards also for the good work. But last, he will finally, last if needed, the last resort, like he will use punishments also in this democratic style. Next one is laissez-faire style. In the name itself, it is given as it is completely free flow. So here in this style, the leader is one who fails to accept the responsibility and he wants to safeguard his position. That's all. He will not think about the result, or he will not give directions to the employees. He will leave his team members. He will not try to dominate anyone. He will not listen to anyone. He will not offer any rewards or he will not give any punishment. Just simply he will sit in that chair. He will try to maintain that position. That's all. Not more than that. So next last one is orientation. Orientation is also, it is step by step. That leadership style is the leader will take directions like step by step planning and schedule for getting things done. His concentration completely on the result orientation. So in this, according to the leadership styles, we'll have, it will impact the production. According to our, maybe if we'll take in the companies, organizations or industries, wherever, if according to the leader attitude, the production will be. According to the leader directions or a manager directions, the end result will be. So this managerial grade is going to show that whatever the, according to the style, how the production will be. Completely it is concentrating the relationship between leadership style and the productivity. Concentrating, we have here 5 type of leadership styles. On impact of that leadership style, your productivity. So this is very important, and we'll go one by one. 5 major leadership styles are given here. Impoverished leadership, which is low production, low people. The first in the managerial grid, the first major important one is 1-1. 1-1 means your people also 1, production also 1. What is this? This leader mostly ineffective. The result is a place of disorganization and dissatisfaction. These type of leader do job only to preserve their job and trying to stay in the same position for a long time. He will not put any effort to increase the productivity. Same time he will not try to make workers happy. Just always he will concentrate on his position. He will try to maintain his position for a long time. That's all. This attitude, because of this attitude, end result will be both are low. Production is also low. People satisfaction also very low. The second one is country club leadership, where you will see high production and high people. High production and low people. This style leader is must concentrate about the needs and the feelings of members of his team. So here people level is 9, so it is good rank, and production is only 1, means he is completely concentrating on team members or workers happiness. Always he will try to make them happy, feel happy. So under him, he will what his assumption is, as long as team members are happy, they will work hard, no need to pressurize them. Because of that attitude, the result is it suffers low production. So this type of style is called as country club leadership style. Next one is produce and perish leadership, where you will see high production but low people. High production, because of that it is ranked as a 9, and low people, because of that it is 1. The category ranking 1. People happiness is only 1, but your production is 9. So you can compare this process with authoritarian leadership style. What is that authoritarian leadership style? Always he will dominate, always he will direct the people. He want end result, that's all. If people are happy, if they are suffering, if they are doing work happily or not, doesn't care. He want end result, so he will try to reach his target by with the punishments or sometimes rewards also. So in this, because of that reason, he will get good production, but same time people are not happy, people are not satisfied. Because of that he will suffer from that factor. So because of that reason it is 9 and 1. Next one is middle of the road leadership. 5-5 means both are in the middle. The production is also not high or low, it is in the middle level, and people also in the balanced level. So he will try to maintain up to certain extent, but he will not try to take any risk also in the future. In the balanced way he will behave. So he will try for the result. At the same time he will not take any unnecessary risk. As long as he is safe, he will continue, he will help the people also. Because of that reason, production also not up to the mark, and people happiness also in the middle only. Last one is team leadership, where you will see high production and high people. So already after understanding all these four, it is making you clear that production is also ranking 9 and people happiness is also 9. So in this one you can see that here people are also happy, production is also happy. So these leadership stress on production and needs of the people also high level. His commitment is also high towards production. At the same time he will, his commitment towards a worker or a team member also high. He will try to make them happy. At the same time he will try to get the production also. This is 9-9, which is showing both are in a good position. So after discussing all managerial 5 functions and organizational behavior, leadership styles, and whatever the important points and related concepts, we are moving on to some of the MCQs which are selected from previous question papers. Next question is in the form of match the following. In this match the following, some of the theories and authors' names are given. We need to match. First one is Herbert theory, two factors theory. Here answer for one is D, two factors theory. Hygiene factors and motivators. Next, second one is McGeorge. McGeorge has given theory X and Y. What is this X and Y? Some of the managers assume that the workers are inherently lazy. You need to direct them always, otherwise they will not do work. This theory Y is completely opposite. Some managers assume that they are self-motivated, very responsible, no need of any guidance. So the second point answer is C. Third one is Alderfer. Alderfer have given ERG theory. ERG theory. It is almost here Maslow given 5 needs, and Alderfer given made it as a 3. Next last one is David McClelland. He has given 3 need theory. So this is match the following: 1 D, 2 C, 3 A, and last one fourth is B. Next, the popular statement, if all you have is hammer, everything looks like a nail, given by whom? This is very important question. So this question. Next one is ethics. Whenever the word ethics, remember. Next question is 8th question. Management by behavior, given by whom? Already we discussed this point earlier. Management by behavior, given by Peter Drucker. So remember this management by behavior. Last 10th question. Which of the formula for Bloom's expectancy theory? A. Motivation is equal to valence into expectancy. B. Expectancy by valence. C. Motivation by esteem. Last one, D. None of the above. For this Vroom's expectancy theory, the formula is A, motivation is equal to valence into expectancy. This is the answer. Answer is equal to A. With this, we finished all 10 questions and hope you understood all the concepts and points which we discussed in this video. Thanks for watching this video.